Yo, what's up, guys? So the question I have for you today is an MBA worth it if you already work at a FAANG company? This has been a question that I've gotten on LinkedIn, and people have been curious about it, and I've actually been in this situation before, so I want to give you guys my own personal thoughts on it. But let's just go ahead and jump into the post and read what the OP has to say. So the title of this post says, MBA if already at FAANG. He says, would it ever make sense to take a 2-year break and go to a target MBA? He's thinking Kellogg, if I'm already a finance manager at FAANG. He goes on to say, I don't have an MBA and worry this could hamper me in future opportunities beyond the senior manager level because I'd be competing with internals that have them. And he says that his total comp is 170K. All right, so he's already working at, let's see here, it says Amazon, and he's asking if it's worth taking a 2-year break to go to a target MBA school if he's already a finance manager at FAANG. All right, so I was actually in a very similar situation as this gentleman. I wasn't actually a finance manager, but I was a financial analyst working at Apple, and then I later made the transition to Google. But in between there, I was also debating, is it worth it to go get an MBA? And for me, I made the decision. I applied to a bunch of full-time programs, a bunch of part-time programs, and knew I wanted to stay in the Bay Area. So ultimately, I decided to stay local and go to Berkeley Haas, which I have no regrets about. It was a great program, met a lot of great connections, and just had a great time. Obviously, if I was younger, in my early 20s, I may have preferred to go to a full-time program, but either way, a top 10 MBA program, top 20 even, I think is going to have a lot of ROI in the long run. Now, this guy says he's at Amazon and he's a finance manager and he feels like he might be left behind if he doesn't have an MBA. Well, challenge that by asking the question, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to, pivot and go into a different job function? Are you trying to go into finance, let's say product management, which is what I did, in which case an MBA can definitely help you. An MBA oftentimes tells employers, hiring managers, recruiters that, you've gone through sort of you've gone through a rigorous process where you've learned, general management practices, how to manage teams, how to innovate, how to run companies, both large and small. It doesn't always give you that hands-on experience, but it does give you sort of the building blocks and the foundation where you can build those skills and be on the fast track. I always tell people this. If you want to make a company, industry, or a job pivot, or any combination of the three, then I think an MBA can definitely help you. The OP didn't mention whether he's coming from a finance background or an engineering or business background, but assuming that he has more of a business type of background with finance and accounting, and he wants to potentially make pivot later to, let's say, data science or product management, MBAs will definitely help, especially top 10 program. Now, if he's on, let's say, a finance track and he wants to stay at Amazon, he wants to continue to build up that ladder, then an MBA may or may not be worth it. It ultimately depends what he wants to do. If he wants to go on the CFO track and be, finance manager, controller, director, VP, and so on, then, maybe a CFA or maybe a CPA would be more relevant in this case. But if he wants to make a pivot into something else and he also wants to, let's say, manage people, then an MBA can definitely help out. In tech right now, there's a lot of MBAs, right? MBA programs are sort of a dime a dozen, and even within the top echelon of top 10, top 20 programs, they're still graduating hundreds of students every single year. They're all competing for the same, banking, entrepreneurship, consulting, product, tech jobs, and so there's still going to be a lot of competition. So the MBA can be one of those things that helps distinguish you and set you apart from all your peers. So take that into consideration, but ask yourself really, what is it that you want to do? Where is it that you want to be in 5 or 10 years? And, if you're taking 2 years off and you have, let's say, enough, savings to be able to support yourself and you don't have to take out a ton of loans, consider that too, because taking 2 years off and paying $150,000, $160,000 for a 2-year program is significant. And that's one of the reasons why, for me personally, I made the choice to do the part-time program where I could continue to work, continue to work on my career, and then also, pay for my MBA so I wouldn't have to be in debt and, have that loan payback. So, that was what I did. Now, is that something I recommend for everybody? Not necessarily. I think there's still value in taking time off and doing a full-time program. You'll definitely get to know your classmates a lot more. You'll probably build better connections. You'll also have the opportunity to even do an internship, which in the case if you want to switch jobs and you switch your career, then an internship is super valuable for that. But for me, I knew I wanted to make a pivot into PM and wanted to just do a full-time job pivot from finance into product, and that's what I was able to do. And I think the MBA was definitely useful in doing that for me. Also, not all MBAs are created equal. There's going to be different MBAs that are probably more helpful or more valuable than others, especially if you want to be if you want to stay in tech and switch internally too. So also take that into consideration. But overall, it depends on what you want to do. I would say if you're still in your mid, late 20s, early 30s, I think it's still early enough to do an MBA. If you're a little bit later in your career, late 30s, early 40s or 50s or whatever, and you still want to do an MBA, that's where I think the executive program probably makes a lot more sense, where the company will even perhaps sponsor you, and you'll also be able to do it on a more accommodating schedule where it's maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month and you're spending a whole weekend with your classmates. So consider that option as well. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of this OP's question. Would you recommend him to go get an MBA now? Do you think it's still worth it? And do you think there's going to be value in taking 2 years off to go get his degree? Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.